It's on.
Hi, I'm Polly Walkastora, a certified Iyengar yoga teacher in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania, and this is
Lee Raven.
And he is joining me to teach you Adho Mukha Virasana, Adho Mukha Svanasana, and Uttanasana. Okay, so our first pose is Adho Mukha Virasana, which means downward facing hero pose. And Lee is going to start by bringing his shins down onto the mat and pointing his feet straight back and towards the wall behind him, and then sitting down on his heels and separating his knees. Okay, now do you see how his buttocks are down on his heels? Okay, now watch how, as he takes his hands forward onto the mat in front of him and walks his hands forward and brings his chest down towards the floor, his buttocks are lifting up and away from his heels. Do you see that? Okay, now watch. I'm going to have Lee lift his head up, grab a hold of the sides of the mat. Now walk your hands back an inch or two, like you're choking up on a bat. And then from here, Lee, push, pull the mat forward. Yes, with your hands. And do you see how he's able to bring his buttocks down and then take his head towards the floor? Okay. Now, inhale and come up. Just sit up for a moment. Now, what if, when Lee attempted to do that, his buttocks didn't come down to his heels? We wouldn't want the buttocks to hover that way, so I would, just for a moment, let me go off camera, and get Lee a prop. Go ahead. Can you show us what it would be like, Lee, if you had more tightness in your lower back or in your gluteals? Yep, even more? Good. Or an inability to bring the knees into deeper flexion. Sometimes when your calves and your hamstrings are really bulky or strong, that happens. And then I can take this blanket here and have Lee move his buttocks down towards that blanket. Now stretch your arms forward, lift your elbows up and away from the floor. Now, do you see this nice movement that Lee has forward here in his upper back? Sometimes lift your head up and bring your forehead towards your knees. Yep, and drop your head down. Yep. Sometimes this is the shape, right? And do you see how that puts a lot of strain on Lee's neck? So he's going to lift his head up, and take his forehead onto that brick. Yes. And now you see this movement that he's getting in here, right? Okay, now from Adho Mukha Virasana, after maybe like 10 breaths here, where you inhale into the different parts of your back, and exhale all the way down into your thighs, your knees, your shins, your ankles, and feet. You can inhale into your middle back, exhale all the way down towards your toes, inhale into your lower back, and exhale all the way down and out through the toes. The next pose is downward facing dog. From here, for his male body, come on up, onto your hands and your knees. Now watch, Lee's going to take his hands wider and turn his hands out. And then he's going to take his legs wider. Yep, jump your toes under. And come on up. Okay, now turn your heels away from each other, to turn the backs of your thighs away from each other. That's it. Good. Okay, now, sometimes, so do you see how he's got one stretch up from his wrists to his hips, and one stretch from his hips down to his heels? Sometimes, this ends up happening. Do you see how the buttocks are pulling down? Okay, now watch how, and then also the upper back is rounding, and there's like a broken line here. Watch, he's going to bend his knees, and move your chest back towards your thighs, and your buttocks up. Right, so there's a bend here, but you saw this got so much straighter, right? And also, the sacrum went forward into this forward extension, which is what Adho Mukha Virasana is. So then he says, okay, now, can I maintain the sacrum moving towards my head, the shoulder blades moving away from the wall in front of me, and attempt to lift the backs of the thighs up to the buttocks and pull straighten the legs? You know what will help him? Grab your mat, come down onto your hands and your knees, grab the mat with your hands, and do the same thing that you did in Adho Mukha Virasana, where you push down into that mat and pull the mat forward with your hands Then you attempt to straighten your legs while going forward with that mat. Nice, okay. And then now watch, he's going to walk his hands back towards his feet while keeping the outer edges of his feet as wide as the mat. And come to concave spine Uttanasana. So we want that same shape in the back that we had in Adho Mukha Virasana. And in order for Lee to do that, he's going to bend his knees a little bit. And then lean forward slightly. Yes. And now grab a hold of your shins near your ankles and pull on them like you did with the mat. Lean forward. Yes. And that will help him bring his side body down into the full expression of Uttanasana. Now watch, as he lifts the backs of his thighs up to straighten his legs, his chest goes up and away from his legs. So he can pull on those ankles a little bit more to help him come forward more. And then, but if he was rounding, the priority would be the extension of the spine, more than the legs. So we bend his knees even more, so it looks like we're bending. There you go, to bring his spine forward and downward. And then inhaling to come up. Namaste. Thanks, Lee.
Thanks, Holly.